Hey guys, welcome to another video on Down to Business. Again, we've moved into that phase of not just working with advisors, but real people in business that I think we can learn a lot from. And today's guest is no exception, the CEO of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service, Mr. Richard Jones, or as we know him, Sir Lunch-a-Lot. But I've known Richard for a long time, and I guess his personality makes it so much easier to relate to people, which is a big part of business. But we want to learn some of those secrets, some of the things that maybe weren't so easy during his career, learn a bit more about what he's doing and how he brings the team together, and ultimately pass on some of those skill sets and tips for business owners that maybe you can utilise within your own business. So, Richard, welcome and thanks for coming along to do this video.
Andrew, I'm very much looking forward to what you're going to ask me.
But I know you really well and probably assume a fair bit that everyone else knows, but for the purpose of viewers maybe that don't know you, tell me a bit about Richard Jones, your role and the service that you represent.
Oh, thanks, Brett. Yeah, look, I'm Novocastrian, born and bred. I probably live about 300 metres from where I grew up, so I haven't ventured far, but then again I haven't found a really good reason to leave Newcastle at this stage. Went to school, boarding school in Sydney for 4 years, but came back here to do 11 and 12, oddly. But that's the way it is, and here we are today. So I had a pretty fortune. I remember when I finished my HSC at 79, I was telling someone this story last week that my dad said, "Okay mate, what are you going to do with the rest of your life?" And I thought, well, I was captain of the Newcastle under-18s rep team. I used to surf every day, and I thought, well, Dad, surfing and playing footy sounds all right to me. And he said, well, that's no good, I've got you an interview at the BHP tomorrow, because an old mate of his was the general manager of the BHP. So I seriously started as a fettler over there, and I worked in gangs, and I worked with a lot of older fellas who taught me a lot about life. And I was a bit of a rogue, I suppose, in those days, and earning a few $100 a week in those times. Well, I didn't know they made that much money, and going out a little bit probably, getting to work not feeling real well, and the gang had let me sleep in the back of the truck till Smoko. But gee, they made me work like a dog through the afternoon. But you know what? I learned a lot about life because there was all disparate people from all walks of life. So I think I learned a hell of a lot in the Fettler gang at BHP.
And just on that, I think, and we'll get to sport, I guess, but then I know you played a pretty good level of rugby league, and going through that, I guess you're with a few older heads as well, which, in my experience helps you a lot with, just probably a bit more maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first, again, back to my old man, one of his best friends was the manager of the St George President's Cup team, which was an under-18s competition in those days. That was 1981, and Johnny Mack rang me and said, do you want to come down and have a game of footy? And I thought, well, another game of footy is all right. And, that's 40 years ago next year, and I was only talking to our old coach, Kevin O'Sullivan, about 2 months ago through the COVID at home lockdown, self-reflecting, and one of our guys from that team, Ricky Powell, passed away from a heart attack, so that got the group back together. So we're planning now a reunion next year. But you talk about that under-18s comp, so the next year went into grade because St George, we won that competition, and I'm told by Kevin that they've only won it 3 times in history. So I was pretty chuffed to hear that. I didn't know that fact. But then I went into grade, and those eras at St George where we had at least 2 sides in the grand final for the 4 years I was in grade, and in fact in 85, we had 3 sides in the grand final. So I had the fortune to play with guys like Rod Reddy and Craig Young and Steve Morris and the 2 Johnstons, Slippery Mike, and I played with a lot of those guys in reserve grade. So it was a really strong club. Roy Masters led us through all that. The leadership from some of those guys, particularly at Craig Young, was just outstanding. And I was fortunate enough to captain quite a few reserve grade and third grade teams. And I think as a captain, that's held me in good stead for what I do now, because it's about that teamwork and leadership. And as you know, Boots, the captain isn't always the best player, but it's getting the best out of the good players that you have around you. I'm finding that every day in the job that I do now. It's quite extraordinary.
So talking about, we said the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service, I mean, especially Novocastrians, but even more so with the new contract, it's expanded a lot. But a lot of people would see, the chopper in the air, and some of us have been fortunate enough to go on it, which is not for the wrong reasons, to be honest, but it's amazing what these guys do. But I mean, other people say on the news, but tell us a bit about the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service.
Yeah, look, it's a significant charitable organisation, as you know now. We're the entire northern New South Wales. We took over the Lismore base about 4 years ago, coming into this current contract. We've got 130 full-time staff, which when you tell people, that just blows them away. The amount of work that we do is quite extraordinary, and I think the new contract was predicated around the government viewed that people in the bush still needed a service and the health service. But everything retracts back to major trauma centres like the John Hunter, like Tamworth Base and like Lismore Base. So, in fact, I was in America at a conference where the ambulance service actually won an international award for the service that we're working in. And a stark fact that hit me was that 95% of people in New South Wales live within 1 hour flight time of a major trauma centre. So from a worldwide health perspective, that's a pretty damn good level of service. But what came with that is that the government had to invest, and they certainly did. In the old days, we could only ever fly the busted up machines that we could afford, but now the investment's been made and we're seriously flying world-class machinery that can get to people in a quicker period of time. It can also carry a lot more equipment, and they seem to be doing a lot more work on the ground in the field to stabilise patients before they fly back. In the old days, it was more about scoop and run, getting them back within the golden hour, as they called it. But that changes the life and the outcomes for the patients. So again, it's just a world-class facility. So as a charitable organisation, we need to raise quite a clip every year through the communities. And
because just on that point, and again, for those that don't know, no one's ever paid to use the service, have they?
Technically, you could probably say that, but I guess we have to be careful about the language because we're all taxpayers and the government.
Agreed.
But technically, and that is a unique factor about what we do also. So I think through these times of COVID and shutdowns and charities, all out there doing online stuff, what's held us in really good stead is the relationships we've built over. 1975 is when this service started, so surf life saving background. Grew out of that now because surf have a lot of their own good, jet boats and skis and the like. So we've built up a lot of relationships, particularly with the mining industry, where guys and girls pay out of their salary, and that's an enormous contributor to our service and a great base. So, we've got a really broad base that we build on. So if we lose a few here and there, it doesn't shut the doors, if you like. So, and what we've found through COVID is we've done our annual end of year financial appeal, which has always been big in the Northern Rivers, but we didn't really do that down the Hunter or Mid-North Coast, but it's just blown us away. It's been an outstanding success, and I think the secret is the relationships that we've built. The work that we do, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or a pauper. If you're a farmer or a coal miner, you might need the services of the chopper someday, but as Australians, we do crazy stuff. We go boating and then tragedy in Sydney over the weekend, and you just never know, and that's what our crews say. What's so exciting about the work that they do is that it's traumatic, it sure is, but you could come in the morning, you could do nothing for 2 days, or you could do 10 missions in 2 days. And that could be off a coal ship out of Newcastle or to a farm, to a quad bike or a horse riding accident. So just the enormity of what we do across the board is really quite staggering. And I guess after 24 and a half years in the job, I don't know what I'd do now. As you know, I know a lot of people. And I'm one that you develop relationships with people and you never ask on the first date, if you like.
Yeah.
So, but people come back because they like the cut of your cloth, they like the fact that you're not a seller. And as an organisation, we're not that, Again, we just try and get in and work with people, and we don't get a lot of patients that come back, but then that's cool because a lot of patients don't want to remember the trauma. That's completely understandable. And we can't have their access to their details anyway. That's against the privacy law.
I think it's a really important point you say about the people, and I never ever thought we'd use the helicopter service, but I recall 2 years ago my mother-in-law had a really bad accident, which just at home and complete freak thing, and next thing I know we used in the helicopter and got up to John Hunter and probably made the difference between survival, to be honest, and not. And I guess from my point, you called not long after that with the knowledge that had happened. I think that's the level of relationships that, and I mean, I don't want to put it on a negative, I mean more for the positive of what people do within business. Too many people get stuck in their ways. Not stuck in their ways, they probably get focused on what they're doing too much and forget the relationship part. I guess on that, so you've got about 130 people and in part of your team. Budget, what sort of budget are you managing?
Around north of 40 million.
Yeah, so again, a lot of people wouldn't realise that.
Significant.
What's the cost of a chopper?
The machines that we got at the moment, they're about $16 million each, and there's a $2 million medical fit out in the back, so times 4.
Yeah, so it's not ashtray chain.
No, that's an investment from the government once again, for our community.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people look at a not-for-profit and don't realise how much of a business operation is behind it. Hence, when sometimes we try to learn things from that, I think it's just like, oh, they're a charity. But reality is, one of the biggest things you've had to do is get money from people, and whether you call it government or even general public, you've said relationships. Tell me about some of the experiences you get where some people might say, oh, I don't want to go to that tonight, or I've got something else on. But we take the mickey a bit and saying you're out of it, and I think everyone knows says we see Rich everywhere, but I think we love that, and I think it's a big part of why you've been managed to get people on board. But how do you find it?
Look, I think when you say the word charity, just from the business perspective, it's a big market now, and I've done some conferences over the years where the amount of unpaid work that's done through the charity network in Australia is it's tens of millions of hours per year. There's so many people work in the charitable sector, and there's only a relatively minor percentage that get any government funding. So they're all out on the corner shaking tins and running functions. So COVID has proven that, because all of our functions, like everyone, were stopped overnight. We do 37 housing sessions a week in registered clubs, just stopped. In the Northern Rivers, we've got 7 op shops stopped overnight, just starting to come back as we speak, with all the restrictions in place. But I think the charitable sector, and I talk to groups of kids occasionally about what they want to do in their life, and I said, never forget a job in the not-for-profit sector, because we need accountants, we need HR professionals, we've got engineers, and they're paid accordingly. They're paid as per, we get some tax offsets, but they're paid as per you would in PKF. They're professionals and they deserve to get paid. But we are an aviation business, we're a charity, so what's the balance here? Internally, we talk very much about we have to be a professional aviation business because we're governed by federal legislation. We can't afford to muck up. We've got 2 things in our world. It's our image and our integrity. Probably above all that is our safety. So, our safety managers, our chic, as in health, safety, environment, and quality. It's easy for me to say. So we've got professionals in all those fields. So for kids, come in, get a job in HR, and you've also got the outcomes that we spoke about, like your mother-in-law. So there's all those good field stories, but you will get an experience like no other, that you're working in a not-for-profit sector, but you have to be a professional organisation to get the job done, because if you muck it up, the coal miners will stop giving overnight. If there's a sniff about the money where it's not going, it'll stop overnight. And I've got a very risk-averse board, which is great, led by John Davis, who you know well, and Nat McGregor, ex of the uni, now at the Garvin Institute. These guys came in from left field and started asking all these questions. And it was terrific, because it made us, as a management team, really nimble to say, righto, not that the previous chair, Cliffy, or any of the previous board members were not on top of all this, but it's gone to a new level now. And I guess you mentioned before about, you're in your own business and you just closeted on what you think about. But John and Nat, and of course all the other directors, Rossi Taggart, and I have missed someone, Katie Brazel, they're asking questions from left of centre, and you think, that's great, because I say to my team every day, I don't care how many questions they ask, just make sure we've got the right answers. Well, and don't make it up.
And it's a great point that you say how, I think, and we've said in various videos that we've done previously with different people, the importance of having independence, or a coach or a mentor, just someone that can come and stop you believing your own bullshit.
Exactly.
So that's great, I think, from a helicopter, and I agree, some of the people you've brought on your board are sensational, and John is in his own right. But I think it takes a bit of gloss away from your team as well, because they do a wonderful job. And come back to that. You've got, when we say you've got 130 staff, that's payroll. Okay. How many volunteers are you also effectively managing?
About 1,500.
Yeah.
And they're in all little towns right throughout the Hunter. Of course, that's where the model started. Say in the Northern Rivers, where we went, the model of small towns having a committee and doing a bowls day and a ball. And that's not what they did up there, but they did it through their op shop network. So you've got a bunch of volunteers who have their own rosters, And I've had the pleasure of going into, when I'm in a small town, I'll buy a cake and I'll take it into the op shop. And I could be, because I like to travel in shorts and thongs and a scruffy old t-shirt, and I'll walk in and just say, oh, g'day guys, I bought you a cake, and they're looking me up and down, because I've never met them before.
Yeah.
They say, oh, who's this fat little fella coming in here with a cake? He's had a couple already. But on the walls, they've all got these, we send them every 6 months, a framed certificate, if you like. It just says thank you for your work, and you've raised this much this 6 months, and I sign the bottom of them. And they say, oh, who's this fella? I say, oh, I see that plaque on the wall, that's me there. They go, nah, I can't do it, have a go at you scruffy thing. But then I sit down and have a cup of tea with them, and they're from all walks of life. And it's like in the Hunter, and it's like now up in the northwest New England, they're little towns who generally have put their volunteering hat on because they've had some type of occurrence with the helicopter. Maybe a loved one, maybe a friend, someone, maybe them, travelled, have a car accident and been transported to Tamworth Base or Lismore Base Hospital. So they all have a part to play, and they're unpaid staff. And that's like opening these op shops again after COVID. They're in the most vulnerable category, being 60 north. So we have to be extremely careful. We've done an immense amount of training just in the last 10 days about getting them back in there safely. We're talking about Victorians going north now. There's apparently plane loads of Victorians landed in Byron, Ballina, only in the last 2 weeks before the shutdown. So where are they at school holidays? So if a town, and that's what the COVID app's about, knowing and traceability. So if an op shop in Coffs Harbour, if there's something in Coffs Harbour, we will shut that shop today. We won't let it go through because it's image and integrity. Can't afford to let our people get sick, particularly our volunteers, let alone our own staff. So it's been a real journey. When I talk about the safety of the organisation and 130 staff, there's probably north of 25 that work in the engineering department. There's 2 or 3 that work in stores alone. There's 3 that work in maintenance planning, because we have to predict what the plans are going to be so that we've got the spares on the shelf when that machine comes in. We're limited in the time. We've got to do it safely, but we've got to get that machine back out. Yeah. So we've got 4 machines, 1 at each of the 3 bases, and then the spare. But it's not really a spare because it's either in the shed getting maintained itself, or it's doing training. We have an immense amount of training for the ambulance and hospital staff. And training, as you know, it just reduces risk, and that's what aviation's all about, reducing risk.
I think that's, a lot of what we've been, leading to here is that part that I will give you a rap. I don't think I've seen too many people do it better in bringing people together or relationships. And some people might, I think you'd be the first to say, if you looked at your resume and going, well, you're managing that sort of organisation, blah, 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 there's not all the MBAs and degrees, but I think from real life experience, someone can bring a team together, which personally I think is one of the most important things in business, the second to none. So, how important is that to make sure you can delegate, you can make sure that you know that person that you've given a job to can get it done, bring it together so the organisation under your leadership doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah, let me go back to the Fetler days, and let me go back to St George, and let me go back to say some of the sporting. I always ended up sort of as the leader, the captain, and I probably captained more teams in my time than not. And I always used to flippantly say, the captain just tossed the coin and ran out first with the ball, but then got the team together. You lead by example a little bit, but it's probably when you're not on the field where you can lead by example. So I've really got some minimal training. I've learnt this through real life. A dear old family friend, John Fleming, sadly passed at South Leagues Club, where I left South to go join the helicopter 24 and a half years ago. I was a bit of a leader there as well, but that was on the function side, getting people in, people I knew, sports functions, weddings, and the like. So it's clearly, and my chair John and I have had this conversation a couple of times, is clearly I don't know how to be an accountant. I don't know how to be a chief engineer. I don't know how to do HR, but you know what? I've got people that do know that. And you just trust them implicitly, and you build that relationship internally, and you know that you're not going to get told porkies. So what am I going to say to John Candy, mate? I don't think your numbers are right. He's got a team of 5 or 6 people that do all that for him. He checks it off. We've got the implicit trust in the board now. We had a couple of scratchy periods, and I'm saying that's in that development, a fairly new board, learning to work with the SMT. What do they expect of us? How can we better train them, for want of a different word, in that this is how we do things, and if you think it's wrong, tell us, and they certainly have. So now I think COVID has shown that we were pretty nimble on our feet. We're pretty quick. Everyone just does their stuff. James in marketing. And everyone does their bit, but we all check each other's work. We all check each other's papers as far as what's going to the board, because we know there's going to be questions, and we know that we can support each other. The fact relationships with ambulance are at the top of the tree. We've made immense leaps and bounds with ambulance as far as relationship, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best. But we thought we were pretty good. But we got tapped on the shoulder and said, boys and girls, you need to do a little bit of work on this. So we were around our own little bubble, thought we were okay and doing it pretty good, but we weren't. There's a few things that we fell short on. But as you know, all those little things can be at the top of the mind for the customer. So if that's a lesson, a bit of self-reflection, a few hard questions amongst each other, and talk to the team. You know, we surveyed our senior people, because it's probably a generational thing in most businesses now, that the kids coming through are very, very good at what they do, but how much life experience have they had outside the doors?
Well, it's probably a generational entitlement. And I say it in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, and we didn't get what we've got now because we didn't work for it. You know, the team that I hate saying I've got around me, because that's not the language I use. You know, the team that we have engendered together are bloody all stars. They're all professionals in their own right. But you know, the main thing is that we have a lot of fun. We meet every Monday morning at 10 o'clock about the week that was and the week that's coming up. And now it's all on bloody Skype and all the rest of that rubbish now, which I can't really stand, because you can't get to do this, you know, one-on-one and body language. But it is what it is, and we had to deal with it, and we've done it. And then everyone's pretty much been out of the office at home since this all started. Because as you know, it changed so rapidly. And we thought, okay, well, we'll have a red team and a blue team. But even having desktop computers, you know, that was a problem. You can't take it home for 3 days and then bring it back.
No, that's right.
And then it came, it went all at home. Go home and work from there. Survey them, make sure their workplace at home was in good nick, that they had all the equipment that they needed. So the team, I think it's trust in the team. And again, mate, I was just an old hooker. Okay.
But I think the thing that you've just nailed there is you've already said relationships, but you know, making sure they know that you care and you've got their back and that sort of stuff. I heard a great saying not long ago, actually. I think the Knights might use it now. It's, you know, show me you care and I'll play for you. Yeah. And I think that could be something great for business owners. Because I know in my career coming up through the ranks, you know, positive feedback was, well, if you didn't get told you did something wrong. So, you know, and now I think, you know, everyone loves to be told they're doing something right or get a bit of feedback or know that someone's got their back and they've got a confidant. I think you've done that really well if I look from an outside point of view.
So go back to the coaching and mentoring and from people outside of your business, you know, having a coffee or a bite to eat, telling you stuff that you maybe don't want to hear. So John and I had a coffee and we're thinking about doing some training for me, and I thought, gee, I'm nearly 60. What sort of training do you want me to get on my bike and go for a walk more often? But it was about getting an external person, and through Fiona HR, I found a lady called Susie Miller down on the Central Coast, actually. She runs ladies mentoring programs, and I've been sort of having a session with Susie every month for nearly coming up 2 years now. And she knows me really well now. She came in at a time where we were having some internal rearrangements, shall I say, in the business, and it was a pretty tough time, and I was sort of all over the shop. And Susie came in and my eyes were bulging, and it was pretty stressful. You know, you don't like to admit that you're vulnerable to that sort of stuff, but it is what it is. And anyway, Susie now, she comes in and she hits me between the eyes. She asks me way out questions, and she'll judge me every month on how do you feel, how do you rate yourself on relationships, on relationship with your chair, relationship with the board, and you know, it started, you know, north of 6, but it wasn't at 9.5, but now it's getting well up there into 8s and 9s. So just, I think the fact that you can have someone that you can talk to that's not with you every day, but knows a lot more about you. So Susie's been great for me, and I'd recommend her anywhere. So I guess it's that external feedback. And
it is, and I think the you know, what you can take from that, the key thing you said, you can either, you know, throw the dummy out of the cot, or you can actually take it on board and go, well, they're telling me for a reason. and go and make it work.
Yeah, and one of the things that Susie, which is, again, I'm a people person, no one really likes conflict. It's not,
No.
some people do, sorry, but they're probably out there. But the one thing was that asking the hard questions, self-reflecting and really getting down. And Phil Williams, who used to work for us, had a term, move towards the tension and get it sorted and get it off your plate, get it out the door. So we've been really asking some hard questions, and it's about having the one-on-ones more often with your team. It's about, you don't want to hear all the good stuff all the time. We know all that, and we'll have a beer and a laugh about that. But it's what are the bad things or the not as good things that you need to sort out? Why did you do that? So asking the tough questions of your team.
We use a concept that's called nice versus care. Everyone's nice, and most people are nice because we don't want to deal with it. It's just easier to be nice. We just move on, but that, it's like that rock in your shoe that just keeps inching away.
Yeah.
Where if you care doesn't mean it's all good times. Care is actually pulling me up because you do care about them. And I like to think we've got that in our business. I know you've got it in your business, and I think the business owners that are watching really need to take message out of this around investing in your people, not just saying hi and bye and the social thing here and there. It's actually getting to know, because they've got shit going on as well. Everyone's got shit going on.
Yeah.
So the more you can get out of your people, that's going to be a big part of your business.
Yeah, we start again through the whole process in HR, reward and recognition. So the intranet site that we have is that you can nominate an employee for a good job that they've done. You can do it broadly, or you can do it just anonymously. And then every month at our management meeting, we'll talk about who have we got this month. And when times are better and we weren't so cost conscious, you might give them a voucher at Woolies or something, just practical something, a bottle of wine or something. But now it's just a letter of recognition, I guess, signed off by me. But the people that come back and say thanks via email or ring in and just say, that was unreal, thank you, I was just doing my job. But I think the more you react and reward people just through a simple gesture of a letter or a phone call, they really take that on. So that's the care factor, I guess you talked about. One of the things through COVID that I found really interesting was that I said to the marketing team, give me a list of the people that sponsors, partners in WeWar or Warrior or Lismore, give me a list of the people that you deal with on a daily basis, and I'll ring them and say thanks for your support. So I reckon I made 400 phone calls in the first month.
Yeah.
Just had a list, all the chairs of the support groups and some sponsors and some partners, and it's interesting the reactions. A sponsor might say, "Oh, it's Jonesy, what does he want?" They're doing it tough, they might want a bit of moolah. But just break the ice and say, mate, I'm just ringing us to make sure you and your team are safe and your family is safe and hope everything's all right. And that ice is broken immediately. And I had some remarkable conversations with people about how they're feeling, how their business is affected, and said, mate, when this is all cleared up, I'll just come up and we'll have a beer, or a coffee. And it was extraordinary.
Well, mate, you reckon you got some funny calls. As soon as I ring a few people, they think, the clock's on.
Yeah.
Like 6-minute units. But really, we did the same. I said to my team, it's about making sure people are okay. Because it's, we've heard the saying that many bloody times, we're all in it together and that sort of thing. But it's true, know. And I guess that's great. The other thing that I think is a big part of what you do and you create for your team, and again, I want business owners to listen to this, is that sense of purpose. People want to follow someone and know what they're contributing to. Yes, they're getting paid, but there's a real difference between someone that turns up for the paycheck, and of course we're not turning up for the love. Most people need to pay the bills and family, but having something to work towards and follow. Tell me a bit about that.
I reckon certainly operationally, 100% of our people love what they do, and I nearly said they do it for nothing. That's not true. They're professional pilots, they're professional crew, they're professional engineers. They have a skill level that deserves recognition, and that's normally in your pay packet. But they also get a great deal of, good thought process out of the work they do. We had a long stay. He's only been with us for 8 years. A pilot, very senior pilot in the industry, been a pilot for 40 years. He was our check-in training captain, so had a very, very significant role. He retired last Friday, so he made a little speech, and he was saying that he's worked for oil companies, he's worked in the military, but he never really found a real sense of purpose until he came to work for emergency medical helicopter services, and he was with CareFlight before us and 8 years with us. And he said, it just gave me a new purpose every day coming to work, knowing that we're helping the community. and also conversely seeing what the community does for us from a fundraising point of view. He said, and he's a very quietly spoken guy, Richard, and it just, we all sort of sat there and doing what we do in our own little bubble, and it's that reflection. You go, yeah, that was pretty cool what he just said there. But he said all the right things. He thanked the engineers and make sure that they come home safely every day. He thanked his winch operator and his crewman, who is that extra set of eyes, and the doctors and paramedics who sit in the back. You know, these people, men and women, ultimate professionals. So the purpose is a huge thing. I reckon that if you asked any of our team, they absolutely love what they do. We've got a lot of long-term, and I'm going to go through an exercise shortly about how many man hours, people hours, are involved in our organisation. We've got half a dozen people that are north of 25 and 30 years, and they're there because of the purpose. And I think just that everyone keeps saying, oh, you know, you guys are all heroes, you're all heroes. If you ask any of our operational staff, they don't see themselves as heroes. They're doing a job. They'd rather give the credit to the people that keep their hands dirty in the back, you know, the doctors, the paramedics. And we always say, I've got a couple of little tricks that I use when I go regionally and speak to groups, is that you've only got to get a handful of people right when you're thanking people, and that's the volunteers. That's the first responders in the region, because in what we do, it's the SCS at Warrialla that are there probably 2 hours before any medical help possibly gets there. So they're trained to a certain level, but they haven't got the medical training or a very broad level. And they're the guys and girls that are, they're the heroes out there with a little box and a pair of cutters to try and get someone out of the car for hours. So they hear the chopper coming and they're greatly relieved. But just I think we get, again, you're in your bubble, you think what you do is pretty good, but just the simple thank you to other people externally. Appreciation, and they're the only cut, because you know that if you get one of those, if you miss one of those 5 people making a speech, you're going to cop it. And they might just come up quietly and say, hey, you forgot about the VRA or something like that. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that I've got that wrong. And I could do a speech on the back of a business card because there's those 5 dot points. And as you know, I'm fairly loose and I can broaden it a fair bit. But you know, it's not hard. It's really quite simple. And I think the base that we've built is reflecting now in the outcomes of the, because we thought COVID, shit, everything stops, no one's got any money left, we won't do anything, but we've been pleasantly blown away by the appeal and other bits and pieces that have come in. And I think it's because we say thank you properly. We don't hard sell. You would have seen the multitude of online fundraisers that have come through. We did one of our own, which was a bit of a fitness challenge, which was great for the team. Again, we had about 25 staff to it, so we had a little WhatsApp group, of course, and it was running, cycling, or swimming, or all three if you want, a bit of a triathlon-based thing. And you get so far into it, and if you hang a bit of shit out there, you've got to be prepared to cop a bit. So from a staff perspective, I wasn't game not to do that fitness challenge through the month of June. And you know what, the old adage, healthy body, healthier mind. So we've all been on fire as a group, just hanging a bit of crap on each other just through the net. And it's built the team up. It's built the team right up. It's been tricky for some, but
the big part of what you're saying is having fun, just enjoying each other, because I think that gets lost a bit when you're in the thick of it.
Yes, it's like a footy game. You switch on when you have to, but when there's an opportunity to have a bit of fun and laugh, and we all do it. It's been really quite cathartic is one word, but self-reflecting's been another one. Is you sit back and you'll be able to say, okay, what does work and what should we? So the marketing team have been away in little teams, thinking up wacky ideas. There was no bad idea. Some were just a bit crazier than others, and that's going to be the future. So again, who's going to be able to support charities? Everything stopped. I started to say this before, but every charity stopped all their functions. So is it feasible to think that all of those functions are going to run between now and the end of the year? That's just not possible. Yeah. So just pick the eyes out of what you can and can't do. Who knows when we might be able to get crowds back at the races or at the footy. So it's been quite an interesting time.
Yeah, and it's not over yet, but hopefully, I think what it has done is shown, people's colours, I guess. And I think, I know I've been pretty proud of our business. I know you're proud of your business and what's come through, but I don't think that when we're proven that just doesn't happen. So maybe a couple more questions. Tell me something what's probably one of your hardest lessons you've learned in business, but has served you the best.
Taking people for granted, particularly people that support you. I can't think of any specific one because it's been, again, as a relationship sort of guy, I always try and think of the others first, and particularly people that are giving you something, be it a service or cash. We've got a lot of it's funny, we've got a lot of ex-military guys and part of the management team, and we work on civilian time, which is, a couple of minutes late for a meeting's not too bad, but the military guys, that drives them nuts because, you're never not on time in the military, of course. But I think, taking people for granted, doing what you say, meaning what you do, just being there for people when they need, giving the management team the support and the tools they need to do their job, giving them a rap when needed, but having a hard conversation when they need to, because that filters down the line now. So we demand of the team that, their subordinates, and I don't like that word, but the people that work under them, the teams, have the conversations with those guys as well, because that comes back up the line. Mental health action group we've got internally, which is vitally important. There's a lot of staff from all 4 bases involved. Last week we had we've got a culture action group, and there are all sorts of people. They're not the leaders, some are, but they're the people on the shop floor. And they want to help. They want to help their colleagues. They want to look out for each other. The monthly birthdays, when appropriate, having a staff get together. And I think it shows at the end of the year, like at a Christmas show. Depends how many people you get. In the regions, it's tough, and we try as a management team, we try to go to all of them, but to go to Lismore and Tamworth, it's not that far really if you're flying, but it's a bit of a chore because Christmas is so busy, but got to make an effort. But then we've got 6 or 7 on the management team, so let's bust up in little teams and go. So
I think that's a good point. You've alluded to this several times during our little chat here, but how many business owners or organisations, for that matter, especially founders, that's their baby, don't delegate or don't delegate authentically. So by that I mean delegate but still want to manage everything. And you've done that very well, and I think a true leader, is the one that makes others in the room smarter and makes them empowered. So, I think that's been a secret to your success, if you like, in the organisation, but it's something many business owners probably don't do and could learn from.
Look, I did a year and a half of a fitting and turning apprenticeship at BHP after the Fettler days, and I think I know a little bit about it. So with the boys, you've got about 6 or 8 engineers on a machine, and I'll walk out, and this is, technology at the highest level. So I'll walk out there, rolling my sleeves up and say, "Righto boys, what do you want me to do? I'm handy," and they'll say, "Go in and put the jug on and make us a cup of tea. That's all you're good for." But we have a laugh about it, you don't do stuff you can't do. Delegate, give it to other people, because the proof in the pudding will be at that next board meeting. And if we haven't got answers or something's not right, we're going to cop it. But I'm proud to say that, look, it hasn't happened. There's been a few scratchy moments, but the way that
it's inevitable in that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So, and good board members are genuinely interested in what's going on. They don't want to micromanage either. So they'll let us do the work, and that's what we're there for. They'll set the direction and the policy like a good board, and let us get on with it. So our strategy committee meeting tomorrow morning, in fact, looking forward to the future and ideas. And we did a whole 12 months of strategy last year about what our future may look like. I've got to say, in the 50 or 60 meetings that we did, never once was a pandemic mentioned either. So, but the nimbleness of an organisation to be able to deal with it, make sure everyone's safe, and still do your job, and then move on is quite. And I was very proud of the team for what we.
Again, that's only possible if you empower people and have delegation of authority and that sort of thing, so you can. But before we start to wrap up, again, from a business point of view, more than the charitable or operational side, what's one of the biggest tips you would tell anyone if they were in business or thinking about business?
Trust the team. Make sure your team are on board with the vision. Let them help create the vision, because there's people that can offer something If you're internally focused on what you're doing, you're going to miss the little shiny bit on the side. So trust the team that, and I'm guessing that you're not going to employ people who are polar opposite to you. And if you own the business, well, the man who owns the store runs the store, but how can the store get better? And that's the people that you bring into the team. And again, we're very fortunate that we've got a pretty robust process, and given we're at People Fusion, the team that recruit for us, they know us intimately. They're great friends and great partners, and they know what we need because they know the team, so they'll be able to point us in the right direction. And I always thought HR was a word that I struggled to spell, and I didn't really know what they do. But look, I've got to say our HR department is just outstanding, and they make the difference because they can cut through the bullshit and point in the right direction. And because I'm so emotionally involved in absolutely everything about it, and if I don't feel that someone's pulling in the same direction, that'll probably hurt personally, but it shouldn't. And I've learnt that lesson. So that's one good lesson, is that don't get so emotionally involved that you miss the wood for the trees, if you like. So HR taught us that lesson. But I think it's about people. Treat your people with respect, let them have their say, have a laugh with them. And it doesn't have to be outrageous, but your people will bring back to you tenfold what you can give to them. If you trust them, you remunerate properly, you give the little accolades, you thank appropriately, but also having that hard little conversation every now and then to keep them. And I can't think of the last time I had a really tough conversation, but they're always around the corner, I know that. So move to the tension, get it out of the way and move on. So trusting your team, I think, is a big thing. Let them do the work. What do I know about fixing or flying helicopters? Keys are under the mat, I'm told. But
Mate, we could, as per normal, when we get together, we could talk about this all day. Usually it's over a few beers or 10. But, mate, just to bring it together, I think, again, when a lot of people think about not-for-profits and charities, and I love to say this because I'm on a couple of not-for-profit boards, not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't make money. You don't go and spend it on yourself if you like. So, when you're looking at great organisations to model off, or when you're looking at tips to take, please look at some of these successful not-for-profits as well, because they're great, learning hubs that do it a lot tougher than some other businesses because they have to source their money from us, government, etc. But to me, some of the great things you just said, mate, is the leader doesn't necessarily have to do everything. It's about galvanising your team and bringing them together, empowering them, letting them do their job, having a purpose, that they can follow, and making sure that that's set so everyone can not only see it but understand it and what their role is. The other thing I love what you said was around taking feedback, whether that be positive, negative, constructive, for better, and not just thinking you know it all. And that's both from not just external, but external independence and internal from your team as well, and having that free communication. The other thing is, key message you said around, if there is a tough conversation, deal with it, get it out of the way, and move on. And the other element that we can't go without saying is have some fun. I think Richard does that very well. I know his team and a lot of his team members, love to get in there and they have a bit of banter, a bit of fun. But when times get tough, especially, we've just been through this COVID period, we're still going through it, but it wasn't too much fun around the corner, I think, and some of the more successful businesses or teams made sure they kept that bit of, fun aspect to what they do and enjoyment. So, mate, really pleased that you could come along and do this. I was looking forward to it. Before we do close up, how can people support the helicopter that maybe haven't before, or
Yeah, well, it's obviously through the social media channels, and our website. Any Westpac bank, in fact, will take a donation. But come to an event. We think we're getting better at promoting what we do. So our annual ball, sadly, was postponed this year. We'll move it into next year. One of the things that king is cash isn't always king. So people from a service, so anything that we can get to reduce our costs, that's what businesses are about. But we like to recognise those. We've got a bunch of people through media, through say Caltex with fuel. You get the good prices, and that means a whole lot to you as well. But you need to recognise those people to give them some feedback. And everyone's got corporate social responsibilities now. You don't take that for granted, just because we're the helicopter service and we're bloody good at what we do. It's the thank you. Is giving back to the people. So yeah, look, there's a multitude of ways. Call us at the base. Come over to the base when it's open and have a look. Because
recommend it.
People don't understand the magnitude of the machines, the quality of the facilities that we have. Very hard at the regional operational bases because they're a bit of a closed shop. But at Broadmeadow, when we're open again, anyone can come over and have a look. And we've got some facilities there that corporates can use also with visitor centres. Got all the technology that people can have off-site board meetings and things of that nature. There's plenty there for the people. This is a community-based facility, so we like to invite the community.
Yeah, and I think if anyone wants to know more, you see Richard around or any of his team, ask the question, say hello. Shout him a beer or lunch, he won't say no. But
Andrew, the answer's no unless you ask.
Mate, thanks again for joining me. Hopefully you got a lot out of that, guys. I know I did, and until we have the next time, cheers.